rumor has it.
All right.
If you prep me and tell me what you want me to push,
we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tech Talks with T&E, our third episode. Last week, we introduced you guys to the family, and for the next few weeks, we're going to introduce you guys to some couples and other families that are doing tech together. Please subscribe and like and do all that fancy stuff you're supposed to do and all those things. But yeah, today we have Honey and Lee Witcher, two of my favorite people. I know Elisabeth feels the same way. We nerd out together all the freaking time. It's crazy. But welcome everybody.
Thanks for having us, man.
So it's awesome. So I guess the first question that, kind of tell us how you got started in not only just individually in the tech world, but then, kind of brought in together and working together.
I'll go. Let me go on that one. I started back in database and direct marketing. This is back 30-something years ago. And then over time, as more things moved to the web, I got involved in internet marketing and, over the years and SEO, got involved into that more seriously, probably about 2018, although I go all the way back to the StomperNet days, but I don't really count that stuff because it was just buying Warrior Forum courses and failing miserably. So good education, but not actually, learn a whole lot other than that shit doesn't work. So that was my background into it. Honey?
Oh, okay. My turn. You just kind of cut off, so I wasn't ready. So I really started in probably 2021. Prior to that, I was in construction. I started out sort of as a handyman out of college, moving from a small town to the big city. I discovered that people didn't fix their own things. So I discovered that you could make money doing that. And I got started in construction in the middle of my college career. And that led me into being a lineman, where I climbed telephone poles, and we rebuilt Moore, Oklahoma, like 3 times, I think, after tornadoes. And eventually I got into flipping houses and doing remodels and building homes. And during 2020, when we started having supply chain issues and people began to lose their minds, I got out of the construction industry because it just got way too stressful and it was making me sick. And Lee said, "Why don't you come and help me, in my business?" And I was like, "I don't even know what you do." We're married, but I had no idea what he did. And he was like, "I think that you'll be good. You're a problem solver. And that's what, marketing is. It's solving problems, and you're a natural. And I think I can train you up to do it." So, I started learning a little bit of HTML and listening to SEO Fight Club and just trying to learn the language. That was like the biggest hurdle, I think, was the language barrier, the terminology. And I think that that's still a big issue in SEO. I don't think that everybody uses the same vocabulary. And
a lot of made up words that mean the same thing.
Yeah. And I think it causes a lot of conflict and confusion for new people coming in, is that we don't really have a solid, consolidated vocabulary. But that's how I got started. Pretty much.
Now at that time, did you have clients back then, Lee, or were you just doing other stuff?
I don't. The client work that I've done has been in the database and direct marketing side. I've done consulting for on the SEO side, but primarily it's all been ranking my own stuff.
Okay, that's cool. So what was your income back then? Was it affiliate type stuff, testing, SaaS?
It was a little bit of everything, you know. It was a hodgepodge, and then things would work, and then they wouldn't work, and you'd shift over into into other pieces. So it was a little little lead gen, a little affiliate, a little. Now it's some SaaS things that we have going. So it's much more stable than it was back then. Where you're just trying this and it worked for a while, and then something would happen, and you'd be, oh crap, I need to pivot. So
yeah,
yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, okay, so since you guys have always done a little bit of everything, I know, like, when Terry and I started, he drug me in because he's like, dude, like, I need help. Like, I can't do this. and a lot of his was focused around the visual, around images and design and stuff like that. What was your segue to drag her in? Was it just, oh, I think this would be fun? Or like,
no.
help? Or are we going to build a family dynasty, generational wealth? Come on. We're
So it was interesting because in watching SEOs for over a decade, and working with some SEOs, trying to help them get their various sites or client sites ranking better than they were. I saw some gaps. There were a lot of people in this industry are literal. Just show me the process. Tell me what button to push, and I'll go do it. And that's not really the way to be at the top of the game. That's a way to be very replaceable. And I watched Honey in construction, and she could take various problems and connect dots that were really hard to connect. She could see 2 or 3 steps ahead and kind of pull the whole thing together and see how the overall picture worked, and use that as her problem solving methodology for all the stuff that she had to do. And I was like, that's the skill set. So all we have to do is just train you on the mechanics and some of the fundamentals of this stuff, and then that problem solving thing can take over. And
Right.
That's what it was. And I needed fucking help, and she was miserable. She was working a bazillion hours a day, days, weekends, and then she would come home tired, beat, and angry at the world. So she was a joy to greet when she walked through the door each day. So
hey, honey, how was your day?
Oh, yeah. I pretty much wanted no one to talk to me. I'd been on my phone. You've been in construction, so you know. It's the clients calling you, it's the suppliers calling you, it's all your tradespeople calling you. I mean, I'm on my phone nonstop, absolutely nonstop all day long. So the last thing I want to do is come home and have a conversation with anyone. I've been conversationed out for the whole day. Well, Lee has been home by himself all day, and he's been looking forward to me coming home so he can tell me all this stuff that he's been doing, and I am not interested at all.
Yeah.
And so it just got down to me sitting on the couch, him talking a bunch, and me not really hearing any of it. Like, I've completely turned myself off. And it was just really no way to live, and it's not really a good way to have a marriage. But I was mentally and physically exhausted by the time I got home.
Yeah,
And
100%.
so, you know, we have lots of people ask us, what is it like to work together? Well, it's hard.
it's
You
hard.
know, it's hard to work together in the same office and be around each other 24/7. Because if you
Yeah.
have an issue at the office, it doesn't go away when you leave the office. Like, if you have a conflict with your coworker, that conflict still exists at the fucking dinner table.
Right.
You know, And so, it's a challenge. And when you have two people who are really independent, I've run my own, business and my own company for a long time. And I was the one that everybody went to for
Yeah.
questions. And, I was the one that everybody wanted, sought advice from. And then I enter into a world where I don't know anything,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got Lee telling me everything, and and I push back on that a little bit. I would say things like, "You don't know everything," and
Mm-hmm.
quit telling me what to do, and I heard this from someone else, and how do you know it's true? And I mean, there's a lot of people who push back, and I'm like the queen of pushback.
Exactly.
And and it makes it difficult in a work environment, when your spouses, when you work together, it's a little challenging. And
Hmm.
add in the fact that I have ADHD, and Lee doesn't, that adds a whole different level of challenge that
Hmm.
we had to navigate. But I think overall we've done good because Lee is super patient.
Hmm.
And if you've been through any of his trainings and any of that kind of stuff, you know how patient he is with
Yeah.
people. And thank God, because I don't think we would have made it otherwise. No,
Yeah,
100%.
it is hard because she's right. When you have strong personalities that are driven, and like she said, she ran her own companies for a long time and a lot of different companies for a long time, and you're used to being making the decisions, and that's just the way it is. And now you've got sort of equal partners where you're not always going to see eye to eye, and then what happens? And then of
Hmm.
course, okay, so 5 o'clock, never at 5, but theoretically at 5 o'clock, you leave the office and walk downstairs, and she's still there with that same idea in her head, or me with my idea in my head, and it's
Yeah.
just it's gonna come up at dinner.
Oh, 100%. And that's, like I said, you take road trips, you take vacations, you go to I mean, it's always together. And I don't know, Elizabeth and I kind of thrive in that environment type of thing.
Mhm.
Especially the strategy part of it. We don't do well talking about like client work stuff just because, you know, um, I don't know. It's a different dynamic compared to strategizing about doing your own thing, or
Hmm.
doing stuff
Right.
that's still SEO marketing related, but it's more for you and your family's gain rather than helping the local plumber. So, and it's just I always found that to be the cool part about it. And you guys do the same thing we do. You guys get in the car and strategize. You go do a local weekend and strategize. It's the same thing. You got to get
Mhm.
out of your current environment to get into a creative environment, and a creative environment that you can kind of let loose.
Hmm.
We
Yeah.
have 2 meetings a year that we talk just finances. Those are pretty interesting. So especially
But
when you're
you guys also have one other layer in that your whole family works in sort of the business. So
for
when you
sure.
have an employee issue, it takes on an additional layer of complexity. So what are we going to do about that one?
Yeah, for sure. And that's we've got a great HR department, which is Elizabeth. Yeah. She shields most of the crap away from me. But yeah, it is a different dynamic of when to put on the boss hat and the parent hat type of thing. But yeah, it is totally 100%. So now you do have clients now, honey, on your side that you take care of.
I do very little client work.
Okay.
I pick and choose. A lot of times my client work is more like ongoing consulting. Like, I don't really want to have to try to figure out how. I don't do web design. I don't want to try to figure out how to, change things. I'll make suggestions.
Hmm.
Like, this is what you should be doing, and this is the things that you need to do. And if they choose to make those decisions, then great. I've had a client recently. Who's decided to go in another direction, which is fine. And they're just like, we're not going anywhere. And I was like, well, that's what happens when you don't follow directions.
Yeah.
Like, I've told you exactly what to do. Now, the fact that you haven't done it, that's not my fault, you
Yeah.
know. And and I'm okay with that because that's to me is a real safe place, to be. Just pay me for advice, and whether you take it or don't take it, or if it gets implemented or not, that's that's not on me.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I had the
So,
same. I was going to say I had the same thing when I was in consulting. when I was young, I thought, oh man, we'll come into these companies and we'll show them the data and we'll do the testing and they're going to make all the right decisions because they're smart. And then you figure out that no, companies don't operate like that. They make a lot of dumb decisions because, their psychic told them or, whatever. It doesn't even matter. And you have very little control of that. And that's one of the things that I didn't like about any sort of client stuff is because a lot of times, you can help them, but they won't get out of their own way.
And that is one of and there's a couple, that's definitely one of the frustrating parts. And, and then other times, and I just talked to one of my students 2 weeks ago about this, and he was really upset when he lost one of his clients. And just because he'd been doing everything right, everything was working, everything's flowing, everything's increasing, everything's good. And then all of a sudden this client wants to go in a different direction. And he really took it personally. And I had to, we've all been through that. My brother's daughter is going to take over my SEO for me, or I just hired a new office manager that says she can do this, so I'm going to cancel our account. And, we all run through that stuff. And and that's when it kind of gets really, it does get disheartening because especially like for us, we really, and Elizabeth is way better than this than I am. And good, right, wrong, or indifferent, but she really becomes friends with her clients. I really become personally involved with them. I want to know, why am I even doing this? Am I doing this because you want to retire someday, or am I doing this? I don't like the surface level clients that, oh, I just want leads. Well, then I'm not your person. So, because it's more than just leads, and so, and those kind of conversations are interesting to have. So, hey, by the way, guys, if you guys have any questions for us or Lee or Honey or whatever, put them in the chats that you're in. We're happy to answer any questions you guys have. So, Miss Elizabeth, what do you have for your curiosity on which or how?
Like I totally understand what you were saying about sometimes it's like hard. I don't know that I always think that it's hard to work with Terry. I mean, we've worked together for over 20 years. Like, and if I think back to the beginning phases, yeah, I mean, I think we had a couple of blowouts, And
I fired her a couple times and she just said, okay, fine, I'm out of here.
No, I said good. You do it. Yeah. You talk to the clients, you design the websites, have at it. So I got rehired pretty quick. But I like the fact that for us, especially, like we're working together for the same goal, to build our agency, to build our business, to build our family. And I can't imagine a marriage where you're so separate and you have separate jobs and you're not working together to build something. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, just because I've been doing it for so long. I don't know that has turned into any kind of a question. That's just kind of my observation.
I think that there is something magical in it because, when she was doing her construction thing and I was doing, my thing, you intersect and, you appreciate each other and it's like, yay, it's great that you got that win at work today, going in both directions. But now you really, there's a deeper connection and understanding about, what's going on. And there is a magic in having somebody else that's looking out at the industry and seeing things and connecting dots and, and bringing that into, the fold. So, I get what you're saying. It would be hard to imagine not being that way. Mm-hmm. But a lot of partnerships, not even marital partnerships, but a lot of partnerships are not that way. Yeah. So, they're just, hey, you do your thing, I do my thing, and then I'm going to go home to my house and you're going to go home to your house and, see you Monday.
Well, that's a good point that you bring up because a lot of people don't see business partnerships like, as kind of a marriage. We've had partnerships with people outside of us and, it didn't quite work out. And I don't,
Definitely didn't.
Yeah, it definitely didn't work out. But I think, any kind of a partnership, you have to really look at how deep are we willing to go with this relationship. And obviously, if it's like a business partnership, it's not like an intimate relationship. But in some ways, you really have to dig in deep. You have to get to know each other. You have to make sure that you're going towards the same goals, that you have a lot of the same insight as to the direction, the trajectory. How are we going to accomplish it? What does compromise look like? So there's a lot of things from like a marriage per se that you can carry over into business partnerships. And I don't see a lot of people, um, pulling together in the same direction with the same intensity. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Yeah,
it does.
I think you're 100% correct because being in a business partnership, even especially if you're not married, it is a relationship. I mean, I looked at merging my construction company with another construction company, and part of it was, I told him straight up, okay, so we're going to date for a little bit first before we, merge our businesses together to kind of make sure that we're on the same page. And I, we probably did that for a year, because it takes time to really, get to where you know somebody. And that's when I discovered that we had fundamental, differences in ideology that really wasn't going to be able to be overcome, with the way that we, with the quality that we provide our clients, and with how the finances were handled and taxes and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we were way off and not compatible. So, I mean, that was a good lesson. If I would have jumped in like in the beginning, and I thought, hey, this will be a great partnership, which was my first instinct, it would have been disastrous, and I would have found out too late, you know, by the time we dissolved our partnership and ultimately wound up dissolving our friendship over it, which was sad because I don't really like to try to mix those two. I kind of keep those two separate. Um, but some people aren't able to, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But because I believe that we can get along together as friends and not have the same goals as business people, right? Like those are two separate things. But
Yeah,
anyway, I mean, it was a good lesson. I think I hear people struggle even in the SEO industry, like, oh, I picked up a client and now we're, having to split our agency apart. And I mean, I do think that you have to go on those goal setting retreats, even as business partners, and make sure that you're on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
300%.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is an interesting thing because you would think you'd be wrong. At least I was. When you get into business, Terry, if you and I are going to form, a company or partner up or team up on something, we're thinking, okay, it's business, it's numbers, we understand. Mm-hmm. But so many of the decisions that we make are interpersonal. And so if we don't get to know each other, like, hey, we definitely have to help this client. I'm like, no, we don't, and then all of a sudden now right there is just a difference that has not a lot to do with numbers.
Yeah.
And how do you handle that particular situation? How do you handle hiring and firing and second and third chances? All of these sort of things that pop up. And then you get into a different position. I want to grow. And you're at a point where you're like, no, you know what? Let's just keep it stable and, just do that sort of thing because I don't want to have to keep, hiring and training and, whatever the issues are. Mm-hmm. So it is a very personal thing. And we don't take enough time typically to date before we jump in and get married because we presume, oh, we both see eye to eye, but you're looking at that through the numbers side of it and not the other side of it, which is a good chunk of it as well.
Yeah. And you can even stretch that over into taking on clients. A lot of us kind of blow and go, especially at the beginning. We're just taking anything and everything we can get without actually thinking, is this going to be a good relationship or is this just going to be a freaking nightmare? you know, and so, you know, all that, you know, and I believe in relationships on all those different directions, but yeah, and then, you know, partnerships are, I actually am a big believer in partnerships. I'm a big believer in, you know, I don't want to be the best at everything or know everything. I would rather partner and do what I do and partner with somebody that does better than what I don't do or what I, you know, think is less important or whatever. And but that, you know, that kind of goes into the same thing, you know, with what's happening today is, you know, the state of our industry, you know, the state of, you know, and you could just talk SEO, but you could talk, you know, marketing in general, because we're starting to see differences across the board. It's not just, you know, search to where like 2 years ago you could sit back and just look at how search is changing, but now it's just social and YouTube and video. I mean, it's just everything's kind of changing at once. And what do you, Lee? I know you and I do a ton of testing. So does Honey. What do you kind of see with the state of our current, you know, existence? And I'm not just saying I will never go down the road SEO is dead. I think we all have to shift, and we shift many times. I've been doing this 9 years, so this isn't the first shift. So, you
Yeah.
know,
Well, I think
but
for me, there when I think AI changes things in a very much accelerated way, and I think you're right. You know, this has always been a changing game, an adaptive industry, because the algorithm constantly, you know, changes and adapts, and you know, things that worked didn't work as well, or some things work better now, and you have to stay on top of that to keep, you know, your sites or your client sites on top of the SERPs. But as soon as, you know, AI made an appearance, I was looking at that and said, okay, this is interesting. But then I watched to see some things, like I watched, oh shit, it's been well over a year now. I mean, it's been a year and a half. I watched what Holly Starks was doing with video and voice.
mhm.
And it was kind of funny just to listen. It's like, oh man, that's Elisabeth. Kind of, sort of. It's almost there, but it's not quite Elisabeth. And then you would listen in August, 6 months later, and it was so much better. And now, you know, a lot of the stuff is spot on. And you see the same thing with video representation. You see the same thing with content being produced and other things that large language models can do. It can handle a lot of basic functions. And so I thought last year that we had about 3 years as an industry to shift. I thought last year would be, you know, a learning year. This year, you're going to start to see, and we've started to see some SEO, large language models come in, and, you know, some tech that will look at the site, maybe evaluate the technical audit, or, you know, maybe look at your content and say you need to bolster it in the following ways. And it'd be okay this year. But as fast as it's progressing next year, I think that it could replace potentially most of our industry. You know, I think if you're just the average SEO and you're looking for the push button and, you know, the simple things, you know, you can be replaced by the sort of automation. If you're testing and you're on top of your game, you can figure out a way to adapt and stay on top of it. And that's really what, you know, Honey and I have been focused on now, is trying to get ahead of this particular curve, because we think it's going to fundamentally change a lot of what we do as an industry day to day.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before. Google still is going to have to rank stuff. I mean, for right now, when you have search, you're still going to have. I mean, maybe they'll only show the top three. Maybe they'll show it in an AI snippet, you know, something. But as an SEO and a digital marketer, you're going to be trying to figure out, how do I get into that snippet, right? How do I get, the AI to suggest, my company? So the only people who are going to be able to do that are the people who are going out there and testing and trying to figure out what's working, right?
Mhm.
So Lee's right. Your average, SEO out there just using plugins and stuff to try to SEO people's stuff that don't really know what they're doing. They're just throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what sticks. They're not going to make it. But
Yeah.
there's always going to be, people who have increased their knowledge to a more advanced level SEO and do testing and all that kind of stuff, and they're in with like a group of people that stay in the in crowd, like our
Mhm.
mastermind group, I'm so thankful for, because they all do different stuff. They're staying ahead of the curve. They keep everybody informed. And so this small group of people, are staying ahead of the game. And
Mhm.
those are the people who are going to win. And,
Yeah.
you know, because if everybody's using the same tool, then they're coming up with the same, suggestions. And so all their sites are equal.
Exactly.
Well,
Somebody's got to rise to the top. And
Yep.
and those are the people that are not like digging in and learning the fundamentals. There's a lot of basic fundamentals that people need to know, because how are you going to know if something is broken, or if you're just using a plugin here and there,
yeah.
and you're not digging in and making sure, okay, well, I did all of my foundational work first. It's like your house. If your foundation is not solid, good freaking luck.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of my consulting that I do, most of it is fixing fundamental mistakes,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because everybody wants to buy the new shiny push button thing. Oh, I can rank your GMB in one day. Oh, look at my map pack. It's all green. And they don't really understand, that the fundamentals have to be in place for a lot of those, tricks that people are using and selling to work.
Yep.
And
And
work is a trick. I mean, it's not always going to work every single time, but if you get your foundational stuff, your fundamentals done, then that's consistent over time.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, that's
it's
what I
it's
hear about, link building, or press releases. Oh, press releases don't work. Well, your site is shit.
Yeah.
And no, it's not. I'm like, dude, whatever. Like, I could probably run one report and tell you that your site's shit.
And that's one of the things. That's actually, one of my questions coming up to you guys, especially Lee, for the class. But that's actually one of the reasons I started my class, was I was getting so sick of seeing bullshit that everybody was doing and passing it off as taking care of their client. And it's like, no, and I am very adamant about, you have to pay more attention to your content today than any other time. If you're just still throwing shit content out there, you're going to be in the mess of all the other shit content AI is throwing out there. And Google's having a hard time struggling to filter through it. And of course they are, So I know our crawl budgets are less and less now. I know freaking, just getting us noticed, is a thing. And we have to think about, how can we get my content or my client's content noticed, but again, I started seeing the same crap. And my class is all about fundamentals. It's all about, thinking about content differently, and one of the reasons, one of the things I say in my class is, I don't go over, Quora or Pop or Surf or any of the tools, because you got to get your basics down first. If you don't have your basics down and you throw this site into Quora, you're going to be freaking just crazy freaking struggling to try to fix what you have to fix, and that's why I'm so passionate about really getting down to teach people. And again, just like you said before, they either implement it or they don't implement it, but they're not going to say they didn't know. So, and that's one of the things that I'm passionate about, especially I'm doing my schema course. I've never done a course, but I said, fine, screw it. I'm seeing so much schema bullshit out there. Let's fix this crap. I do believe schema is going to become more and more and more important as this shit goes on, So,
But
but how
again,
did
if
you?
your site is shit, you're just calling attention to a shit site.
Exactly. That's why I tell people, my big disclaimer is advanced or good schema is not going to fix a shitty site. If your
Yeah, I mean,
site's shit, it's going to be shit.
how many
So-
times have you heard this story, Terry? It's like, okay, so I tried insert, Quora Pops or whatever. I tried that didn't work. So I tried CTR, that didn't work. I tried links, that didn't work. So now I'm going to try schema. It's like, whoa, time out. You got some fundamental crap going on with your site if none of that worked. So it's not, none of this stuff is the magic thing that's going to bail you out,
sure.
of a cesspool. And people don't like that. And they also don't realize that if there were a magic push button way of getting that number one ranking, that tool, everybody can afford, that particular tool, and then nobody's got an advantage.
Yep. And that's what, that's the whole thing about plugin schema is, if you have Yoast and you say you have schema, well, so do 7 million other websites. The same freaking thing, and it's, so, I mean, but how did you decide to start your class, and did something drive you to it, or did you see an opportunity to teach people especially about Quora? Because Quora, I mean, I used Quora for 2 years, and the way I use it is I pay Clint Butler $99 to freaking go through the report and make me a video and tell me what to do. That's how I used Quora for 2 years, and it's very, very overwhelming. And I've taken your class twice, and your class is freaking awesome. But how did you even get started in wanting to do that or needing to do that, you think?
You might have to hold on for 1 second because I have a trash truck is coming down our street. It's going to be loud.
I might be able to. Lee can listen in and see if I tell the story correctly from his point of view. So basically what happened is we needed a tribe. We needed people that understood the testing and the SERPs the same way we did. And we needed a place to be able to bounce ideas off of without having to argue our point. Like, we've already done the testing. We already know what works. It's not tested just one time. It's tested multiple times. It's gone through, peer review and all kinds of stuff. So we're not just throwing shit out there that's unfounded. And we needed a group of people that sort of believed the same way we did. And we had a hard time finding those people. So we started the class so that everybody could be on the same page. And then we could grow from there, because we would have a foundation.
So the funny thing is that the original impetus, Honey is correct. The original impetus was I had a project that I was working on. We realized that the architecture of it, we're going to have to rework. So it was going to take another 6 months. So I'm like, well, okay, crap. And I was sitting there, I was on, SEO Signals Lab or one of the groups, and I had two people that were arguing over, I don't even remember what it was, but it's like something that everybody's been arguing with about over a decade, do follow, no follow, that kind of, thing. And I just got pissed off. And I said, Jesus Christ, somebody's got to teach these idiots something. And so I opened up Notepad. I wrote down 8 things that I thought SEOs needed to know based on all the testing and everything else. I said, yeah, I think I can do this as an 8-week training. I reached out to a few friends and said, hey, I'm doing this thing. If you want in, here it is. I wanted about 12 people. I think I had 13 in the original class. And the first class was a week later. So after that first class, I spent the next week building the second class to deliver. So it was like, I was building it live. Yeah, and that was really it, because I was watching these things that are just a lot of these arguments with no data, and they all still go on even today, and just got frustrated with it. So that's where the original class came from.
And that's awesome. I mean, like I said, it's just one of the things that I like about teaching people and doing, because I love testing, and I don't really have a real mastermind group that I can share things with. Except for my staff, but I do like to see when people do implement it, the results they get is probably one of my favorite things. And then I've also seen the opposite where they didn't implement it, and my very first class, I did it super cheap, which was a mistake. And that was, I actually learned that from Lee, I wanted a class that was priced to where you're going to pay this money, you're going to implement this. This isn't a $300 thing you can throw on your JV Zoo account, and just forget about. So, and then so a lot of the things, the way especially the structure of the class, I got from Lee for sure, just because his class just flows nicely. He gets into the certain things. I don't do the little breakout rooms he does yet. but that's like the next step. But yeah, if you want to take a killer class, especially if you're into Cora, definitely take Lee and Honey's class. Awesome. And you won't regret it by any means.
Well, we change it and update it, every time, and we improve it, and so it changes, and so one of the things that we do now is that we do a class project,
Mm-hmm.
so people can, implement what Lee is teaching, on a safe site. And it's worked really well because our last, class, people watched us, build a brand new website and rank it on page 1 for like really big keywords like emergency plumber,
Mm-hmm.
in a big city, not some podunk town, but like a legit large city, real keywords, not long tail, fake, bullshit keywords. And they're like, holy shit, this really works. And like, yes, it does. And it can be done with a minimal amount of work. Of course, that most of the times when you pick up clients, most of your time is fixing shit that's been done a long time ago.
Oh
If you
yeah,
could
that's why I
start,
charge.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you could start the site from scratch, you know, then you're much better off,
Well, yeah, and
in the long run.
you're going to see more results that you can make decisions with.
Right.
When you're fixing somebody else's crap, which that's what I was going to say. One of the reasons I charge double my monthly the first month is I'm fixing crap the first month.
Hmm.
So, and so we do the same thing, not necessarily in the class, but we definitely look at a website that we can definitely see movement from, because we're not building links, we're not doing all the other stuff that's happening that can change the variables of your results. But yeah, I actually heard about it. I talked to a guy day before yesterday that took your last class. He said he loved that fact that you're doing a project now per class. That's pretty cool.
Well, it was kind of necessary. I mean, the fundamentals of the training, the fundamental variables, the ranking stuff, hasn't changed. But the way we implement it to make sure that people get it and can get results faster. So we're constantly playing around with that to see, how quickly we can get people, top rankings. So one of the things that I found is there's always those people that they'll start off and they go, this sounds cool, but I'm not sure. And so they'll wait, halfway to the training, everybody's getting all these great results, and then they start doing it. And, by the time they get to week 8, they're just starting to see the results, as opposed to having great results because they were scared.
Exactly.
And so I was like, okay, what I'll do is I'll get a domain. I'll throw up the $10, and put up a domain, put up some shit content on it, and say, okay, let's go practice on this, because you can go destroy my domain. Don't feel bad about that, but just, go apply. And then they get a chance to see how everybody applies the concepts to different pages and what happens.
Okay.
And so, it becomes a chance to not only, try your hand at it, but see what everybody else is doing. And through the interaction, get different ideas from different SEOs. Because if we had a new person that was in a group with Honey and I, for example, we're looking at a particular thing, Honey might have one idea, I might have a different idea, you might have a different idea. And they're looking and going, man, all of these SEOs have some really good ideas. I think I like Terry's because it most closely aligns with the way I do things. And then they do it and they get results, because there's not one way to do it. But it was a way of getting people to actually implement faster by building that into part of the training where they actually did it. And then all of a sudden it overcomes the mystery of having to go do it on your own sites.
Yeah. Hey, can you share the link for your next class coming up? So if anyone is interested in joining.
Yeah, it's testedseotraining.com.
Hold on, I'll pull that up.
Yeah, the next one, it will be in early September, and that'll be the last one for this year. We'll be doing that then. We haven't set the exact date, but it'll be after Labor Day, I don't know if it'll be the first week after Labor Day or the week after that. I'll have to take a look with Honey and see what the calendar looks like.
Right on. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, my class starts tomorrow, so I'm actually pretty freaking excited.
Drop a link.
Ooh. I better get a link for that one.
And I only have 2 spots left, so it can only take 10 people. So, so it's a little bit, kind of. I'm not necessarily. I just don't like big crowds. Let me see. What was I going to say? What you guys are doing some other things too, right? As don't you have some SaaS stuff going, or what else are you doing on the?
Yeah, we have some other SaaS. We've got one simple link tool that we've built, and it's out. I'm actually doing some additional training videos now. We got a big training library on that, and a group of users that starting to share some of their own little tips and tricks and things like that with each other, which is good to see.
Cool.
So if people are interested in that, they can go to witcherlabs.com and it's there. And then we've got some other things that are in the beta and development stages that are coming out. Just little things that we use to speed up our processes, get faster rankings, and we're sharing that with the community, so people will see that when it starts to make its way out of beta.
Cool. That's awesome.
What advice do you have for other people that, not necessarily just couples that work together, but anyone in the industry? What is your best piece of advice for another entrepreneur?
Okay, so you can go into any SEO group you want right now and read, and you're not going to have to read very far before you find 2 different gurus saying exactly the opposite things. And that's the state of our industry. It is more a religion than it is a science. People operate on their belief based on what they see and their interpretations of their experience and whatever else. And obviously, anybody that doesn't believe the way I do is an idiot. So that is a struggle when you're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. So I would tell people, look out there and test it for yourself.
Yeah.
That is the best way of figuring out what actually works, what doesn't, who's full of shit and who isn't. And so if you're going to do this, if you're going to treat this like a profession and you're going to take on clients and take money to rank them, you should at least know that what you're doing has a positive effect, and you should be able to prove that. And so it takes a little time and a little energy, but I would say test it. And that's where Honey started with her when she was learning the stuff. She was learning the language and stuff like that. We started by setting up simple tests and have her, just go figure out some things, on her own. And, that led to just whole fields of curiosity and expertise that she has now.
Yeah. And that's awesome. One of the things too that, that I kind of tell people the same thing as far as, when you're looking at doing things and you're comparing things. And one of the things that I found that's probably the most frustrating is 90% of the people in this industry just do what's easy and fast. That's it. That whether it works right or doesn't work right or whatever, they're just going for reporting, some KPI that they can send. Hey, look at all these citations I built this month. Well, cost you $70 on Fiverr, and you're charging $1,500. So, but I think that's the big. The laziness of our industry is. I actually like the work. I love digging into the work. So I actually like loading blogs. I still like doing the basic stuff. Because I can get creative with that stuff, and then I can see what kind of results I have compared to, interlinking with this set of, anchor text compared to this set of anchor text, and, testing. Do I do an external link? Do I not do? It's just, that's where my passion is as far as doing stuff. But then I meet other SEOs that, are just doing whatever minimal stuff they can do to get away with.
Yeah, and it's funny. I would say, Honey probably has the best insight into that, because she literally came into this industry from zero. What's a keyword? All right, let's start there. That, she didn't have like me with, database marketing and direct marketing. And then there was, the online stuff. I at least, had experience in related stuff that I could apply here. You know, she came in cold. So, you know, honey, what would you say for people that are, you know, trying to make it in this industry?
Well, normally what I tell people is, go through W3 schools, HTML, so that you can just understand like the basic HTML, tags and what things do, because that helps you understand different reports like Cora and other type things. The other one was really just going through SEO Fight Club, because they get down deep quick, and they go through a lot of tested data, and a lot of people who present on there, have been pretty well vetted on, what works and what doesn't work really. And so that was always how I told people to start. And will you understand everything that they say on SEO Fight Club? No, you will not. It's gonna be like listening to a foreign language on a podcast. Like, you don't understand half of what they're saying on there. But I mean, you have to like full immersion, into it, which is kind of what I did. And then just setting up like biodomain that's not a client, it's not your site, your SEO consulting site or agency site. Like, set up a separate site that you can test on, that you can burn down. And and test things on there, and to see what works, and see if it tanks and if it doesn't, and that kind of stuff. Like, have a site that you can run.
Yep.
I think it's important, and that's one of the things that we go through even in lease training. Like, buy a domain, spend your $10 to $13, whatever it is, and buy a domain and test on it. And you might even want to try just different hosting,
Yep.
because sometimes it's not, the website that's your problem. Sometimes it's a hosting, issue that's
You know,
the problem. So you have to set up in some different areas. And I think that that's what's really important. And then really use your brain. And I think that this is where a lot of people, fall short, is they don't use their own common sense, to make decisions. I mean, I've seen people pick the wrong keyword. Elizabeth and I have had a conversation about this.
Yep.
Oh, they want to rank for this. No, no, they don't. You don't want that. That's not going to get them anything. But it's hard to explain to a client that the keyword that they want to rank for isn't going to get them any business.
Yep. It's like personal injury lawyer.
Right.
Mhm.
It's like people aren't looking for that.
Yeah.
They're looking, personal injury is a great one.
Yep. Looking for car accidents in more specific terms. Most people don't even understand what personal injury means, but every lawyer on the planet wants to be number one for personal injury lawyer, and it's going to cost them 10 times the amount of money to get there that it would for a car accident attorney or
Right.
so
Exactly. So
yeah.
some of it is just really basic stuff, and that is picking the right keyword. But everybody they spend so much time researching keywords. Like, I'm doing these keyword research and using all these tools to do keyword research. It's like, come on, think about what you would search.
Yep.
And
100%.
type it in. And when you type in that keyword, does it show your competitors, or does it show something completely different? If it shows something completely different, then when people type in that keyword, let's say they do type it in. Let's say they type in, some specific keyword, and and then what comes up, in the search is not, let's say that somebody sells apple pies. And so they type in apple pie. Well, what comes up? Recipes. So then the person's like, okay, well, apple pie is not really what I want. It's like, buy apple pie online or whatever, closest
Yeah.
apple pie in Oklahoma City or whatever. And you start narrowing it down, and then you find that's how it really is going to the SERPs and typing it in. Do your competitors
Yeah.
show up with that keyword or not? They don't. wrong keyword. Try again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Honey brought up one of my favorite tactics. Actually, I've told a number of SEOs. I mean, yes, grab a domain and use it to try to rank some stuff. But I find that a lot of times we're afraid of Google and its rules. So I'll tell people, buy a second domain, put some content on it, and then do everything that you can think of to burn it to the ground and watch what happens.
100%.
And all of a sudden they look and they're like every spammy, bad, whatever thing, and the rankings just keep improving, and they're like, holy moly. I'm like, okay, so now you understand a little bit more about the system. Now you can refine and play within the boundaries that you want to play within, but not be hamstrung because you believe that something is going to happen if you do this one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important for somebody starting out in the industry to, first of all, don't be afraid of hard work, because the easy button doesn't work. Okay. You've got to dig in and be able to do the stuff. I find so many people are wanting like everything handed to them on a platter. Like, oh, here's your SOPs and here's how you do this and here's how you do that. No, you got to kind of figure some of that stuff out yourself, but then also to surround yourself with a tribe of people that are respected in the industry, that know what they're doing, that you can come to if you've exhausted all your resources and be like, hey, I've tried this, I've tried this, I've tried this, I've tried this. Do you have any suggestions? But don't just go to those people immediately and say, oh, how do I do this? How do I rank for apple pie? Okay, well, what did you try? You know what I mean? Like, there's a balance.
100%.
It is totally true. I think I would bet, because I don't know your guys' process, but I would bet that you have a process for, how you build the website, the technical foundation that you lay it on, the internal linking, the content, the way it's done, the external linking. Certainly I know the schema. I know that has a process, coming into it. And once those foundational pieces are in place for your client or your own websites, things rank and they continue to rank well and move up in the rankings. Now, that's not a push button. There is no push button anywhere in that. It's good old fashioned, let's till the soil, let's put some fertilizer and some compost in there, let's make sure we weed it and water it and get it plenty of sunshine and nutrients, and and then it happens. But people think, oh, I just want a push button garden, and that doesn't happen.
No, not well. I mean, you can buy a garden already grown.
You can. It's usually more expensive, though.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, and we're actually looking for a tree in the backyard, and I'm like, I think I want to spend like $600 or $700 so I have a big tree instead of this little tiny thing that's going to take 5 years to grow.
Yeah,
so,
you're buying time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, one thing that I wanted to get to, Honey spoke at SEO Spring Training last year, this year, last one. And it was actually one of the biggest things that I got out of this conference, which there was many, many speakers. And actually, in full disclosure, I'm actually implementing it into my on-page class. But talk a little bit about the importance of image SEO, because I used to, for years, I would no index images, for years. And up until about a year and a half ago, I stopped doing that. And then, watching people about what they're doing with images. But what Honey talked about images at spring training was just mind blowing for me. Will you share a little bit? You don't have to give away the farm. So.
Right. Well, here's what I think. We're at an age where images are really important. If you look at, the Facebook posts that get the most attention have images with them. TikTok is big. YouTube is big. Everything is like pictures. Like people want to see the picture, and that's what draws them to the content, right? Like these kids and young adults, they don't read shit. They do not read. They don't.
Yeah.
And so you have to get their attention with images, but at the same time, you've got to get Google's attention also.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of sites that are real image heavy, photographers, interior designers, all of those type things have lots of images, and you can use those zones to increase your word count and stuff. And plus, it helps even in the building of sites. If you have your images named a specific way, then you know what page they need to go on, and all that kind of stuff. And the
Yeah.
alt text is huge. Those are, with screen readers and stuff like that, alt text is really important. It's the blind or seeing impaired that use alt text. So that's the reason why you have a box that's like, hey, ignore this. This is just a filler image. Don't worry about it. But at the same time, you can talk directly to, yeah, the seeing impaired and saying, hey, here's our phone number. Give us a call. We can help you with this problem. Like right there, like know your audience. And so the seeing impaired, it uses the alt text. That's where your audience. If you can skip all the bullshit on the page and they don't have to read through all that crap because your header image has all the information that they need to make a decision,
Yep.
then use it. Use the area for the purpose it's intended for.
Exactly right. And then when you include that image and the text from that image in schema, now
100%.
you've even got more of what you can do.
Right. And so if you can pop a snippet or a knowledge panel that has an image with it, you're going to get a higher conversion rate than you are if you don't have it.
100%.
That's the bottom line. It's a conversion factor. So if you want to increase your conversion, then you got to take your image SEO seriously.
Exactly. And it's amazing. I'm doing an audit on our site right now, and the first thing I look at was number of images because I like to see how big the site is. And I found the same image on 40 blogs.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Do a new image for each blog or a new image for each page. It does you no good to put, the image you loaded 6 months ago on your new blog you're doing today.
Or if you're gonna use it, then name it differently.
Yeah, name it differently.
Change the
But
name.
also
on
know
it.
in WordPress that'll change the name for the blog for the picture you put on your blog months ago.
Yeah.
So if you change it in the WordPress back end, it changes it wherever that image is at. So
right.
That's why I'm a big believer. One of the biggest things in our SOP, and actually one of the struggles with our SOP, is images, especially if the client doesn't provide them. So we can do blogs very fast, but finding the image is the bottleneck. But it's important, So I agree 100%. But that was one of the biggest things I saw is, the alt text should be a conversion tool, not a keyword stuffing tool.
Right.
And I also use the description area of the image very heavily. So I don't use the caption just because I think a caption underneath the image kind of looks dumb on most sites. But
yeah, I ignore the caption, but you're right. I take advantage of all the areas.
Exactly.
Well, I think you made a good point, Terry. It's not an opportunity to stuff keywords. It's a way to fine tune and do it the right way.
Yeah, for sure. And continue your brand. It's I'm all about building the brand of whichever site we're working on, and the name of the brand is at the end of every single image, whatever I name it. The brand is still at the end, because I want that image and that brand to be associated to each other. And same with the alt text, you're going to do that naturally. Hey, you're at Mike's Plumbing's, hot water heater page, whatever. No, I thought that was just genius when I saw that. I was like, okay, that was cool. So, but anyways, yeah, I don't know if I think I told you how great it was. But either way, if I didn't, it was awesome. So, all right. Any last things from anybody? Any last questions? Any?
No, I just saw Corey Hubble laughing at us, for some of the comments and things like that. Thanks for the laughter, Corey.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Corey's always there, so which is awesome. But yeah, so reach out to Elisabeth and I if you have any questions about this podcast or anything. We do have a coupon code going right now for our stuff. It's going to end on Wednesday, I think, because our class starts tomorrow. It's Father's 24, so I did one for Father's Day, and since I'm a father and a grandfather, so we just did a little coupon code for that. But it goes away day after tomorrow because my class starts tomorrow. And then if you have any interest in Lee's class, which I highly, highly, highly recommend, reach out to them, talk to them. I think you even have to interview for it and qualify, which I
You do have to
totally
interview.
agree with. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with that. So, but again, it's one of the best classes out there. I loved it. If I had more time, I'd go through it again. But anyways, thank you guys for your, not only your friendship, but your, we're able to reach out. We do a lot of stuff together. Your network is always going to be better than your net worth. And these two are a prime example of it for us. So, thank you
guys
again.
for having us on, man.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
Thank you. So it was a pleasure. So, go look at their stuff. They're doing some amazing things, and follow them, track them, stalk them, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, be
All right,
nice though.
be nice. Yeah,
Be nice.
don't be rude. Yeah. You don't want to piss off the group. That's my thinking. So, all right, guys, have a wonderful week. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next Monday, where we'll have a couple more guests. If you have ideas and stuff that you'd like to see on our podcast, please mention them to us. This is going to be something that we're going to do all the time. So thank you guys again for your time, and God bless everybody. Have a good week.